This?
Oh, is it?
What is this?
Finger heart?
This.
I don't know.
This?
This.
No, take your...
This?
Yeah, it's like just literally...
What does this mean? A heart?
It's a finger heart.
See?
It's a little...
Yeah.
I like that. Again, Home Depot's, I think, really good for like first time exposure outside because, again, you don't have to interact with anyone. So you can really just focus on the training itself and just let the noise and everything go around. But something like this, going up to the counter, ordering, being in closer quarters like this, it forces you to have to use those social skills of like interacting, you know, while you're ordering, putting them in a position where they're not jumping on the counter and they're not going up to everyone else in line and doing all those things, you know.
Have them,
And
like,
then this.
different purposes for different sessions. Like Home Depot's great for walking, and like if it's really cold out, like walking past people, distractions. But then like just having the purpose of a session in public be downstairs.
Yeah. Yep. Working on that exposure because that was him. Snoop's a very, very excitable kind of dog, and it's not the issue of reactivity, it's just the issue of excitement. And and that's where I think the struggle comes in with dogs like him, is that it's not an actual issue of like, oh, is he gonna jump on or like bite someone or bark at someone, or he's just too friendly. and he doesn't need to be in these situations. I want to be able to bring him and, you know, and have that comfort of me and him being here, but I'm not coming here to be like, hey, everyone look at my dog. You know what I mean?
It's like you want to blend into the environment rather than stand out in the environment with your dog. And you very much can, if you go in public spaces, like just as a human, like, and you see a really bad dog, you're like kind of side-eyeing it. And you're like, teaching a dog to stabilize in public is such a great skill.
Yep. Yeah. It's just so important. But,
and then like Snoop, you said, like gets really excited by people, and it's like, is that inherently wrong? No. But it's like if he's purposely not listening to his owners or his handler because he's so excited by like a stranger.
Right. And it's not even like necessarily in a situation, again, like sport or whatever, like Snoop or something. It's in the situations of like, oh, like embarrassment, you know, it's like obviously people can get embarrassed by that or whatever, where it's like their dog's just non-stop going everywhere. But it's more of the fact of like it could cause issues, right? You know, like I saw a video recently on Instagram, guys hanging out on an outdoor patio with his like golden retriever.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he's at a coffee, and he gets up, one of the guys gets up or something, and he kind of walks over, and then he gets wrapped around the table, and then he freaks out and he pulls over like 3 tables, and it's just like this big scene. It's just like, yes, that's embarrassing, but it's also something where it's like that could be dangerous too, you know? And like, whatever, if you're talking glassware or something like that, you know, you're out to dinner and you break a bunch of plates and stuff, like, you know, that could cause harm if dogs step on it or whatever. But
I think a lot of the times people don't even know like when is their dog ready to do something like this, and like you have to put in preparation. You can't just like blindly take your dog and hope for the best.
Right.
So even as we were deciding like who to bring to the coffee shop, I was like, who could use it? Who is ready? And I was thinking of the 2 newest dogs we got, and I'm like, yes, I could probably make it work. But I'd be training the entire time.
Yes.
Whereas this is the dogs are existing with us.
Right. Yes.
Rather than
this is more like fine-tuning the situations, right? He knows what the commands are. He knows what the expectations are, right? And so it's something where I can work on a much lower level and understanding level and not use this necessarily as like a big...
Not have to manage him the whole time while we're trying to like drink coffee and order.
Yeah, just talk and hang out, Exactly.
That's where people, I think, get overwhelmed, is when they try to do something like this and the dog is struggling. And their whole focus has to be on managing the dog rather than enjoying the environment.
Right. Yeah, and that's, I think that's the reason why we kind of chose these dogs. And I think it's a little like subconscious for us to do it, because it's just like, I understand, okay, we're going to a place, a smaller coffee shop. I'm going to bring a dog that can have great success in the situation and not necessarily use it as a big teaching point, whereas like Home Depot, again, is a little bit easier and better for that. But it's something that I think, a lot of times owners definitely struggle with that in the time, in the spectrum of like, when is acceptable, you know? But I don't know. I think for me, in terms of like when it's acceptable, is again, you've already practiced duration inside and outside of your house multiple times for a good extent of time too, you know? And then also obviously understanding of the commands as well. You know, they need to have a clear understanding of
Exactly,
you're
it
not
is what
going
you
to
want
be,
them to do.
yeah, you're not going to be wrapping around the tables. You're not going to be going up to every single person that walks in, get excited, and run up to them, you know. But and then especially, I think it's obviously if you're going into a dog-friendly place, you have to expect that there's could be dogs in there already. You know,
And that your dog's able to handle that.
right. Luckily, there's no other dogs here, but even if there were, we knew that both of these dogs would be able to listen to us more than interact with those dogs, right? Whether it is reactivity or excitement.
Yeah.
And I think that's another big thing to think about too. You know, I think the Lakewood Truck Park. You know, people bring their dog like.
I see dogs there all
It's
the time.
absolute mayhem,
It
but
is.
and because it's outside, and because you can to some degree have a good distance between other dogs and stuff, but I think it's just such an overstimulated situation because so many people allow interactions and stuff like that, that I think that's one of like the biggest no-nos that
People are
I
drinking alcohol.
yeah,
And they're like,
that I like tell people, like not even just clients but just like my friends, my family and stuff. It's just like I get it, I like it, but it's a little too much for unless your dog is very well behaved and very well trained and manageable. It's a lot for us and a lot for the dog, you know. But
if you're trying to relax and like have a beer with your friends, you want to be able to do that without dog training.
right, without constantly like focusing on the dog and correcting the dog and making like that again a training session. If it is a training session in a situation like that, it's like 10-15 minutes max, then you gotta go. Like it's like, because it's gonna be just so neurologically just exhausting for that dog, you know. But you know,
I can do more damage, like if they have negative interactions and their stimuli is way too great and they're constantly in that situation.
Or even if it's something where like if you find yourself overcorrecting or whatever, like, you know, and now your dog is already overstimulated and now it's getting shut down because it's confused and, you know, again, a good point of like knowing when your dog's ready for that, you know, and some dogs just aren't, you know, but
There's like, people want to bring their dogs everywhere and it's okay to like not bring your dog somewhere. And it's okay to leave your dog at home so you can go enjoy time with your friends.
Yes.
And honestly, like a dog's place, like now that I'm more experienced with dogs, like I don't want to bring my dogs to a bar.
Right.
Like, if I was getting a drink at a terrestrial, like sure, but if I'm trying to like, you know, just fully relax and enjoy myself, my dogs are staying at home.
Yep. And I'm a little bit more flexible. Like I'm about to be a huge hypocrite. I have taken Sully there to Lakewood Truck Park and stuff, but it's not been something where like we are there for a super extended amount of time, you know.
And he's good,
but,
like he's, you know,
and
you've
yeah,
done a
and
lot
he's
in
ready,
public with him.
right? And it's something where he is manageable, and even if I do have a couple of drinks or something, it's something where I'm still very well aware of. He is my priority in that situation. Of I'm still keeping an eye out for dogs off leash or for that one reactive dog or just knowing like body language of like another uncomfortable dog. You know that it's something where because Sully can be a lot. You know, he can get very excitable and doesn't really know his own self-awareness sometimes. But so it is something to constantly. But again, I'm constantly like I know what I'm putting myself into.
Yeah.
Where a lot of times I think people can just get overwhelmed in that situation of not understanding that they're gonna have to be on top of their dog the whole time.
Yeah.
You know.
Or they like let things go and they're like, I'm just trying to have fun. And then the dog learns that in a stimulating environment, they don't have to listen to you.
Right.
Or check in with you.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with bringing your dog places. Like I'll bring Sunday places.
Yeah.
But like you said, you have to think of what is my priority. Is my priority to enjoy time with my friends, or is my priority to train my dog and have a training session out of this? Like Home Depot session would be like, you have a lot of space for air, but here, like we want to blend into the environment, and I don't want to disturb other people's time because they're doing computer work or they're working. And if we had our dog like, and we're like, no, shut down.
Right.
And then we're really disturbing the environment. Like the dogs need to fit into this environment and adapt, rather than us like forcing them to be in situations that they're not ready to be in.
Exactly.
So clearly these dogs are very much ready to be in this scenario.
And even still, you know, I mean, Emmy's doing wonderful. Snoop, I've had to correct a couple times, but it's not been. It's been a quick fix. He's understood. You know, he gets excited again, but it's something that it's the understanding and just being able to kind of like. I agree with a lot of times we feel like we need to yell at the dog when giving a correction or like, you know, and something where it's just like, I've been able to speak at this exact tone and just let the remote do the work because he knows the understanding, you know, it's not a huge, right. So even still, it is still very much a training session, but it is something of more the fine tuning, kind of what we were saying before, and not so much the teaching part of it, you know, of a lesson.
The goal is teaching. The goal is not perfection each time. So that you said you had to correct him a couple times, but it's good for him to realize that you're going to be persistent and consistent with your criteria, so he can easily understand the expectation and then adapt appropriately into the environment.
Yep. And at the end of the day, it's success is all that matters. You know, if I can walk out of here better than we walked in, that's all that matters. You know. Even if it's just a little bit, even if it's just holding duration a little bit longer, being a little less distracted by one person walking in or something, you know, that's success.
You see, like, people that do stuff with their dogs, you know, or go to Home Depot or go to stores or take them to a brewery patio, and they're asking so much right off the bat. And I always try to slow my clients down and say, like, let's focus on one thing.
Right.
So could that be the downs or the heel? Obviously, we're going to correct for behavioral things on their own, but just isolating, like, let's down. The purpose of the session is downs.
Right.
Or the purpose of Home Depot is healing in the store.
Yeah. Or even the fact of just like, again, kind of, I know a lot of people, and I know especially I struggled a lot when I first started working with Sully in the social interactions between people, you know. He's a cute dog, especially when he was younger, you know. And so obviously people are going to be coming up and like asking to pet him and doing all this stuff, or even just the walk by kind of like, oh, he's so cute, you know. That's like instantly a trigger for so many dogs. Like Snoop, for example, you know, again, not wrong necessarily to be stimulated by that thing, you know, it's insane, but it's the reaction that you have to it, you know. And I think a lot of people, one, struggle with the, hey, just give him space. I know he's, you know, I'm sorry, but he's just kind of working. Yeah. Yes, and as well as kind of the fixing the dog too if he does break it. You know, a lot of people let the small stuff go, but that's when it really matters the most. Because if it's something where he can be calm, you know, your dog can be calm the whole time you're here, but then that one person comes up, oh, can I pet your dog, you know? That's when it really matters on whether you're going to hold your dog to the criteria, because that's all it takes then, right? He breaks the command, you're like, oh, well, you know, he's held duration for 15, 20 minutes so far, so I guess, yeah, you know, let him get away with that one breaking the command. Then it's just every time someone comes up, he's going to go and break it, you know what I mean? Or she or he is going to break it.
Things in the environment can trump what you say to them.
Right.
And they can easily get distracted. And it's like, some people like when people interact with their dogs, and like, that's fine, but just do it in a manner that is productive for your dog.
Right.
So they're not breaking command. If you truly want them to say hi, you can release them from the position, and then still get on them for jumping on that person. If the person's getting a little bit too excited with them, you can be like, hey, like, I'm still going to correct my dog, even if you excite my dog and entice my dog to jump, because the rules are the rules, even if somebody's encouraging it.
Right. And that's, that was another point, a very good point, is that, like, yes, some people don't mind, or some people don't mind or whatever, but it's still the fact of, like, if your dog's in a command and they break it to go say hi before you release them, give them that correction and then go and release them and then whatever, then it's fine. But there still has to be that marker of you made a mistake, right? Just so you know, mom or dad is watching and you made that mistake. Now it's fine because I don't have to worry about you. You're a cute little puppy and excitable and that's fine. But know that you made a mistake first. And then when you have your interaction, then you go back down and we're going to work through that again.
And you can also know as a complete sentence. Like there's your dog's not an object or a toy that you can have to pass around or interact with. You can just be like, no, not right now, they're in training.
Yep.
And like people find that so uncomfortable to like say no, and people are like, I feel mean. I'm like, don't.
Right.
It's like if you had a baby, a human, and people are coming up and being like, can I touch your baby?
Right.
Like you'd be like, I'm calling the police.
Go ahead. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
So we have to stop thinking of our dogs as something that everybody should have public access to, and that they're a toy.
Just because you bring them out to the public doesn't mean that they're just the public's thing too.
Yes,
they
it's
are
not
your
a
dog.
public access thing.
And you have to also kind of look at it in the perspective of you're bringing them into you are just allowing them to be in that situation. So you have to have their best interest in mind, you know? And it's something that a lot of people that are working through those interactions of just hearing, seeing, smelling different things at different places and stuff, it takes some practice, I think, for those people to kind of stick up for themselves before it's too late,
Yep.
They see that their dog's uncomfortable, it makes them uncomfortable, they get kind of shut down, whatever. But it's something that having that quick, just obviously polite, but like quick reaction to just be like, I'm sorry, they're just kind of we're here to kind of work on things. And you can't let those people that are gonna say something about it get to you, But because I've ran into situations where I'm out at a coffee place or something with Sully, right? And someone comes up and I tell them, no, I'm sorry, they're just kind of like hanging out. He's just working on some training, and you get well, then why are they here?
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't matter why they're here, right?
Not
They're not here to see you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much. Like
it's like entitlement that people feel like they can do whatever with your dog.
Or the fact that they like think you're like irresponsible for bringing your dog. Like if your dog's muzzled, they're like, why would you even bring them here? It's like, because I want to work to get my dog better and more comfortable in these situations. So like, thank you for the practice because that helped. This whole interaction helps me and my dog, but respectively,
sure,
go away.
And having like a line already set in your mind. If you're a shyer person, or you're more timid, my go-to is like, no, they're in training. We were approached twice in Home Depot my last session by 2 employees. And the guy was like, can I approach? And I was like, no, they're in training. And just having that sentence rather than trying to scramble with what do I say? I don't want to be rude. I'm in your store.
Yeah.
It was the manager too, the one that we see all the time. And then this sweet little old man came up and he's coming up to us and he just starts telling us a story and he's reaching for the dogs and I was like, no sir, no, they're in training. So you just have to be prepared for those situations.
Yeah, you do.
If you're going to do stuff in public, you have to be able to tell people no.
And that makes a good point too of how we were saying before with making sure that your dog is prepared for those situations.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared for those situations as well. It's something that know the environment that you're taking your dog to, whether it's going to the park, whether it's Home Depot, whether it's a coffee shop, a restaurant, whatever. All of those places differ in distance that you're able to create and what you're actually focusing on in situations. So being mentally prepared to bring yourself into those situations are very important as well. So
you perfecting public access. It's just having a dog that you can depend on.
Right.
We do drills in our training where I'm sure you've done it too. I'll have my client work the dog and I come up and I'm like, oh my God, what a pretty puppy. And I'm the distractor and I have them practice saying no to the dog and resetting the dog in the position.
Yep.
And that can be hard for people initially, but I think it's such a good skill to have your clients practice.
Absolutely. And it's very good to see because sometimes I'll do it, but I won't say, I won't tell them, and I just kind of want to see what they do, and then we reset. And then, like, if the dog does break it and they don't fix or whatever it may be, it's something that we'll reset, and then we can practice it a couple times. And it's just amazing to see that, like, that realization of, like, the light bulb go off when you're just like, you see, oh my gosh, this is so much easier that, like, I can have this person interact with me or my dog, and we're both calm, we're both understood, the situation at hand, and then both come up on top. It's just a really good thing to see when we're able to kind of push through that a little bit.
Yeah.
But we can just get them a little bit more comfortable, both the dog and the client. But
it's good life skills for everybody.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And that's, again, something that I really struggle with, but just with practicing with so many dogs now and over the years, I've been able to, like, build my own confidence up with sticking up for, again, the dog and for myself. And
it's uncomfortable, like, at first.
Yeah.
And, like, people that are really, like, dominant personalities, they don't understand how that could ever be uncomfortable.
Right.
But it's like there are people in the world that are different.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to navigate. Like, I'm a shyer person, and the things I used to do with Nelson, like taking him, like, to bars and just doing really stupid stuff when I was a dumb teenager, and, like, passing him around, and, like, I'd hold my breath being like, I hope he doesn't bite anybody.
Right.
And now if somebody asked to pet him, I'd be like, no.
Yep.
Just no.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's not easy. I know that firsthand. It is not easy to do in certain situations, especially the bigger the crowd, but again, it takes some practice, Got to train yourself sometimes just as much as you're training your dog.
Like, truly, how dogs, like, if they're on edge or they're, like, guarded, they, like, eat either super fast so that they can, like, be on guard again.
Yeah.
I feel like men just live in that state of, like, hypervigilance all the time where they're like, I must eat so then I can just, like, be aware of my surroundings again.
Well, I think that partially
it's, like, very
is
primal.
it. Yeah, I think that is partially because it's like with even just having a conversation, it's something where it's just like, or maybe it's just my ADHD, I don't know, but it's just like I need to focus on this because if I'm like eating and talking, I'm just like I can't do both.
You can't multitask.
Yep.
Didn't they, like, scientifically prove that, like, women can multitask but men can't?
Yep.
Yeah, I heard that.
Like, they can't use
Well,
two
there's-
parts of their brain at the
Yeah,
same time.
there's
or
just
something.
like we need to have like one thing where it's like it's like how women plan their day. It's like, okay, we need to do like 7 things, and so we'll just do a little bit of each, whatever. But it's like men, it's like one task at a time, complete.
Even
or
something as simple as just eating.
yes, yep.
Can't do it.
I think you went. Did you go with us? We went to Home Depot. I had Gus, and we were. Oh yeah, we were waiting for you.
Yeah, I wasn't there yet.
Yeah. And this guy just like went to go put a cart away, and then he like didn't even say anything to me, and just straight went towards Gus like this. I was like, "Oh no, please don't touch him. We're training." And he's like, "Oh, sorry." I was like, "I had to act really fast."
Yep.
Especially when you have a
Gotta be
puppy,
quick.
like
Yeah.
people feel entitled to get in the dog's space without asking because it's a cute little puppy, and what could go wrong?
Right. It's like the innocence of it.
And a lot of owners are left thinking like, we should elicit this from strangers because I want my puppy to be socialized and I want my puppy to like be okay with everybody. But it's like overdoing that can lead to dogs just either getting too excited, with people or developing some sort of fear.
Yep.
Right.
These birds are perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. This is all really.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Down.
Yeah, if
Here, I'll
there's
let
2
you
things with
just pass
puppies,
those around.
it's
Bridget.
neutral and they need to care more about you than everybody else.
Yes.
Yep.
And that
If you
can
do
be
those
difficult.
things, then like you'll be good to go. Everything else will be a walk in the park after that.
Something like this is having the dogs all around, like these two being so close in proximity and like still wanting to kind of interact and stuff has been really good for them as well.
This is like the epitome of good dog socialization.
Yeah.
When you're out and about on leash and stuff,
Yep.
is that they like are with each other and they learn how to be calm together.
They're not like in the car when we put them in the trunk, they were like wrestling.
Yeah.
And like, it's not wrong for puppies to play, but
Right.
have a place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right now is not the time nor the place.
Right. Yep. And even still, like in the car, it was something where it was like, yes, they're both in the trunk, so they're going to be interacting and stuff, which is fine. But there were still standards of you're still not allowed to jump on the back of the seat. You're still not allowed to like get too aggressive with it, you know. So again, I'm just like stating criteria, making it clear. But,
Making it super simple for like we were talking about. When we enter something, people make the mistake of trying to get their dogs to do too much. Like heel, sit, down. It's like just pick one thing and consistently hold your dog accountable for. And that's so much easier than micromanaging them for everything.
yeah.
And if you get a dog and you're gonna want to take them on these outings and stuff like that, making sure that the first few times you take them, it's like with the intention of working with the dogs,
And
not just like out to brunch with friends,
Right.
getting mimosas. Like
that can be really
And just
frustrating.
expecting perfection, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Winnie, particularly, like she's your friend's dog, and I think you told me that they were really struggling with her. And right now, she did goofed at me just now because she is not used to not being the center of attention constantly.
Right.
And like we said earlier, it's like she needs to exist in my environment. I'm not here to entertain her. I'm not here to constantly stimulate her, feed her.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, like positive reinforcement's good, but yeah, it's something to the point of like demanding like her like
She's
demanding that attention or that treat or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I have a client that actually has been struggling with this. So they own like a bar or work at a bar, something like that, and they bring their dog to work a lot. And he's very vocal and demanding like that, and they're struggling with getting people to stop paying attention to him when he does that. Like they'll put him on a bed somewhere, and Jake, no, down, and they'll start whining or barking, and they'll ignore him, but they'll have people or guests that are there that'll go up and be like, oh buddy, you know, you want attention. And so that's where it becomes like very important that you make the decision, like I talked to them about, either you bring him that day with the intention of we are going to advocate for our standards with our dog and interrupt that and make sure nobody goes to interact with him, or we're just not going to take him that day.
Yeah.
And that way we're not going to be overwhelmed with it.
Sure.
Because say like she's barking, and say this was a setting where there's like guests at that table and you're ignoring her and we're ignoring her, but if one of them turns around and goes like, oh, puppy's talking, and does something like that and engages, then she's going to be like, oh, see, it works. And then she's going to do it from there.
He said,
He's one of my clients.
You called?
He's an older dog. He's like 4 or 5, I think. And he's just very nervous. So, I mean, this type of setting would have made him very panicked before, and he's come a long way.
That's awesome.
Good job, Jakey Poo.
Yeah, it doesn't just have to be puppies.
He said thanks.
Yeah, a lot of, like, if you have a nervous dog, using a lot of the same protocols that we would for puppies is, like, generally the route to go.
Right.
There's just a lot of neutrality to the environment and stuff.
Like
Success. You know, just have that success. And that's, you know.
he's a leaf.
Oh.
Sorry.
The puppies and the leaves.
It's like knowing the environment as well, you know. It's like obviously if you have a nervous dog, you're not going to take him to like a bar or something, you know, because it's going to be too much. But
It's like doing something like this with the expectation, like you said earlier, going into it knowing it's a dog training session and not like hanging out.
Yeah.
Because you could easily get very frustrated if you're trying to multitask and talk to friends. And like she kept getting up or barking, and I'm like constantly, no, stop.
right.
And then my frustration builds, so her frustration builds.
Or confusion, you know.
She just has to learn, like, or all the puppies have to learn, like, not everything's about them all the time.
Right. Yep. Yeah. That's
Puppies
just
draw a lot of
really
attention too, so
That was scrumptious.
Yes, you do. You gotta be prepared to set boundaries with other people when you take a dog out and about, especially a puppy.
Yeah.
scrumdiddly-umptious.
I took Clyde, that St. Bernard puppy. He doesn't look like a puppy, but he's like 10 months old. And he was a good example of a dog that genetically he's like very sound. She got him from a really good breeder, but as she was raising him, she was given really bad advice on like what to do, and so she did a ton of like everyone's petting him, everyone's touching him, and through talking with her, I was pointing out like, well, when you were doing that, and to fast forward to now, he like head ducks and shakes every time she takes him in public, like very nervous, shies away from people that get close, things like that. And she was like, I don't know what happened. He used to seem like he was totally fine with people petting him all the time. And I was asking her, and she basically said and admitted that like, oh well, yeah, like I would notice him like he would turn away from the person as a puppy, or like wouldn't be actively engaging in the interaction, basically. And I was like, well, those are puppy signals that they are uncomfortable. You know, it's when they're a puppy, it's so minor, the little things they're gonna do to indicate that they're uncomfortable, and you want to make sure that you address and stop the interaction before they have to escalate and get worse.
Right.
Because that's the first moment you see them disengage from the interaction, you need to stop.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to continue pushing it any further. And so it was like after just a month of implementing like, don't let anybody pet him, tightening up his obedience, things like that. Now he can like go out and about. He's not fearful anymore, not ducking his head. People can walk right by him. He's like, no big deal, whatever.
Yeah.
Even to the extent that like we were walking through Home Depot, and you'll get those people that do like the drive-by petting, that just touch the dog as it's walking by. And
especially a big one that they don't even have to bend down for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And even moments that happened, like they would touch him, and you just kind of look back like, oh, okay, whatever. And so now it's because the touching is so few and far between, his tolerance for it is much higher.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, that's not that big a deal. Because now it's like rare if he gets bombarded versus like that used to be just a rule for him.
The thing. Yeah.
And he was like, here we go,
Right.
every time he would go out.
And
But even in that case, like, she had asked me like what to do in those contexts when people do that, because she's like, I even have things on him that say like do not pet in training. She's like, but people still do that. And I was like, well, if it was me, I want to make them feel as uncomfortable as possible so they never do it again.
Right.
So even if they touched him and it's over and they're walking away, I will look back and be like, excuse me, it says not to touch my dog.
Yeah.
And then make them feel
Be a
very
learning
uncomfortable.
lesson for somebody else. Like I had a client, and I was doing a send home, and this little boy came running up and was like, can I pet your dog? And she immediately was like, yeah. And I was like, no, you cannot pet the dog. And she's like, well, like I don't want that kid to hate dogs now. And I was like, so you would put the kid in a situation where your dog's uncomfortable and the dog could potentially snap or bite, and then the kid will actually really hate dogs.
Yeah, or be scared of
like,
dogs.
Your dog's not a toy.
Yeah.
It's not like a property that everybody gets to pass around and a trophy.
Yeah.
Well, and
It's a living, breathing animal.
I think too, like going to the point that I see for Nan as well, is that it's like when we have those puppies or those dogs, and we maybe blow off those signals of kind of being shy and head turning and stuff. Obviously, it's not aggressive, so there's no reason for people to be like, oh, that's we need to stop it, kind of thing. I feel like, but obviously. They try that, they don't want to be reactive, so they shy to the point of like wanting to avoid, but if you allow that to go so long, then they're only left to do it themselves, and then that's when they turn to reactivity, and then boom, it works, and so it's like, okay, so there you go, there's my own solution that I had to find out on my own, whereas like as long if the owners were to just take advantage of it, I feel like it's so much easier to kind of fix it before it's a problem, right? Especially that dog being that big, I mean, you know, things could go south very quickly if he were to have like resorted to more of the reactivity than just to shying away, you know. But that's
like, on the flip side, like I had a King Corso Mastiff mix, and he was very friendly. She did a lot of growing up, like people talking to him and touching him. But then, because of his size, when he was out in public, he would drag her anytime he saw a stranger.
Yep.
And it wasn't aggressive by any means. He wanted to go say hi, but we accidentally conditioned him to be able to blow mom off.
Yep.
And he got excited. And we had to deal with that a lot, and like have him not have that impulse to go to the stranger.
right. And it doesn't matter if they're 10 pounds or if they're 120 pounds, you know, like their mind still can work the same way.
Yes,
So.
exactly.
Yeah. And a lot of times those big dogs, they don't really realize how big they are, you know.
Their intention is not to drag their owners and hurt them, but there comes a point they can tune you out, and I never want my dog to get to a point where they can tune me out.
Yep.
Can you turn your car off, please?
Jake says the same thing. He said, that's scary. Well, dogs figure out how, like, they don't figure out how big they are, they just figure out what they can get away with.
Yes.
Right.
So it's like if you own, like, a large breed dog, dogs don't really see size. They don't have the ability to, like, perceive, like, I'm bigger than that dog.
Right.
They just have the ability to know that certain behaviors give them certain results. And so if you have a large breed dog, it's so important to make sure that they always feel like you're bigger than them mentally. You know, like this Rottweiler I'm working with right now, he's like 100 pounds. He's much bigger than I am, much stronger than I am, but like right off the bat, I made it very clear, as soon as he tried to use physicality against me, I made it very clear to him that that was not going to work. And that's the importance of using like tools in dog training.
And how
it's funny
is it?
to me that like most of the people that are arguing that like you don't need a tool to train a dog are like large men.
Yeah. Well, how funny is it too
Okay.
when you first probably checked that dog and he looked at you like, oh
exactly.
shit, you know,
exactly.
it's like
and he's looked at me
it's
that
so
way ever
funny,
since.
right? Because it's like that's all it, not all it takes sometimes, but you know, but it helps a lot in that first
if
little
the
step of
first
like, no.
time they do that, and you
Right.
know what to look for as far as like them trying to push the boundary,
Yep.
and you set that tone right away, it's very impactful.
That's the importance of even like using like e-collars and stuff. You know, people always obviously want to use the lowest levels and stuff, and a lot of people struggle with, well, let's start low and then we can climb up. But but to your point, it's make that first one count, and then once you find consistency, then okay, now we can start working down. But you need to make that first one count to let them kind of know, hey, there's new structure here. You know. You're not going to just be pushing me around.
You have to make them believe that you're going to hold them accountable.
Right. Or else they're just going to walk all over you.
I think it was...
Literally.
Yeah. And like the waitress even coming up here, like, and stepping around the dogs.
Yep.
Like, she instantly was like... And I still held her accountable. And
Right. Because she was respectful as well.
Well, and it's
just
important
like,
that like you make the wait staff like feel comfortable around the dogs.
Yeah.
You know, I would never want to bring a dog out that like makes them feel uncomfortable to be around due to its behavior and stuff like that. So
like if they're scared to bring us your food
yeah,
because they're like,
it's
oh my
like
god, is this dog
the
gonna
dog's
eat it?
jumping,
It's like,
the
right.
dog's like, yeah, it's just not fair to them.
No.
And that's how you ruin being able to have places that are pet friendly.
Yeah.
Is by like taking a dog and not being courteous about your dog's behavior that's
Right.
there.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep, exactly.
being respectful that it is a public space. And like, yes, people may come up to us and ask, oh, can I pet them? They're so cute. Or other dogs, like we were saying in the last session, like other dogs come up because this is a pet-friendly place. And we really have to be prepared to handle that situation if the dogs do have an interest in going up to that other dog. Because just because it's a shared space doesn't mean it's a free-for-all or a social.
Exactly.
And you have to be prepared for like a reasonable amount of people and dog interaction.
Yeah.
You know, like it would be unreasonable of me to take a dog that is a bite risk without a muzzle and very little impulse control because it's just the beginning of his training into a setting where people are going to be walking by. A dog might be walking by and be like, boop, hello, and keep walking. Like, your dog has to be at a certain level of like impulse control and safety to be put in a setting like that first and foremost, because that's just naturally going to happen. And there's a big difference between somebody like from across the bar letting their dog run over to yours or whatever than somebody who's just minding their own business walking by you and their dog says boop, hello. Like you can't get mad at somebody for that.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
That cat
You want me to save
great
it? Moving
place.
it back? You too nervous
Shout
to
out.
eat it here? Okay. No. He's incognito. While Winnie's making a scene, he's like, skeet.
Winnie's very much a puppy. This is probably her first time being held accountable to something. So she's
in a
like
big public setting.
frustrated. And
Well, and that's what's so interesting is like, if this even was just like an average person who didn't know any better, they would leave this being like, oh, she did pretty good. This wasn't that bad. not knowing that probably a lot of the things they did in response to her not so bad behaviors, the next time they come, she's going to be a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they were like, oh, you're cute when she's barking, or oh, it's okay, like giving treats to calm her down, or doing things like that, letting a lot of people pet her. And so it's like, you have to be very conscious of like, everything your puppy does is basically them asking a question.
Yes.
And you have to be very intentional about like what your answer is.
And the barking
addressing it, right.
is equivalent
That's a good
to
way to
if
see
you're
it.
having a conversation, like two adults are having a conversation, and the little kid's like, mommy, mom, 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 mom.
Yeah.
And then we don't let humans do that. Why would
Right.
dogs?
Oh, some people do.
Yeah.
That's how you get bratty kids.
Yep.
But yeah, that's
Gremlins.
a very good point.
Or bratty dogs.
Bratty dogs.
And people like don't think that dogs can be spoiled or brats, and
Yeah.
they
yeah.
absolutely can.
I feel like we get like breeds or personalities or issues like kind of in waves.
Yeah.
Like the wave of
It's a
dogs
puppy
I've
wave.
gotten right now are just bratty dogs.
Yeah.
Just bratty dogs. And it's like so clear because when I work with them, they do fine. And then as soon as the owner takes back over, they're biting at the leash, they're jumping on them, they're biting at them, they're barking at them. And it's just because they know that like they can act like a brat and get away with it with their owners.
Yeah.
But
That Great Dane I worked with, I won't name her name, but the first session she was like crawling on me, jumping at my face. None of it was aggressive, but she was like, I hate being told what to do,
Yeah.
and now I'm going to bite your clothes because I'm frustrated that you're enforcing that. And her mom was like,
Yep.
oh my god, she's being so bad.
And again, it's the size thing.
Yes.
It's like, I can
they
do this.
figured out what
Yeah.
they can do
Yeah.
physically to like overpower you. Once a dog realizes they can physically overpower you, it's very dangerous.
Yes. Yeah.
Very, very dangerous.
Yeah. Again, it's very much like a spoiled kid or whatever. But it's just like, if they've never been told no, what's stopping them from doing whatever they want to do? Nothing. You know, like. But the second you pop them and you're like, hey, quit it. They're like, oh, okay. There are rules with this person.
Yep.
You're not eating wrongs.
That's your answer.
One thing that
Exactly.
I will start correcting you for. Eating wrongs. She's not worried about.
All right, Jake, you
Can't
ready?
wait
was
to do
trying to
a
eat a
session
rock.
like this with her in a couple weeks and
Yeah.
see how much less I have to manage her
Yeah.
and pay
Yeah.
attention to her.
Yeah, this is good. Yep, I'm ready.
Leo, you cute little boy. I'm sorry I pee-peed in the back of your car.
Who peed?
You did.
Leo.
Damn.
Boy, Jake.
In terms of when to start training, obviously here at Miracle, I think the youngest we do is 4 months, right? 4 or 5 months, I
formally,
think.
The youngest we'll accept into the program, I believe, is 4 or 5
Yeah.
months.
But there is no cap to the age too. So in terms of like age, obviously, yes, like we do need them to be a little bit older and conscious of being able to learn, right? And to be kind of aware. So there's a little bit of time, but I definitely think around that 4 or 5 months, they've had enough time to kind of explore some surroundings, enough time to be around the owners and stuff like that too. But I don't know, in terms of training, I feel like it more depends on what you're training for than the
Yeah.
actual age of the dog.
Sure.
You know?
And like training, we think of it as like command only, or like the dog has to be learning downs, come, recall at a very, very early age. And you can just take like the first couple weeks of bringing a puppy home and say like, let's do crate training, let's get it on a good schedule. And you can do so much that goes beyond obedience and just having a dog that's raised healthy.
Yeah.
So the potty training, I would say, is a huge one. Crate training can be very difficult for some people.
Yes.
It is a difficult process. It is not supposed to be easy.
Right.
And if you've been gifted with a dog that just is very easy in the crate, like that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people deal with the screaming and
There's so much that goes
Yes.
into it, yeah.
And
Screaming,
then-
pawing, gnawing. You know, you hear all those things of like, I don't know how they got out, but they did. You know what I mean? Like, so many people say that,
And it's like more focused on developing a puppy rather than like formally training a puppy.
Mm-hmm.
So like we just did a session with a puppy and we took her outside and just had some environmental socialization. So there's so much you can start with your dog immediately.
Yeah.
Like that goes beyond like having to expect them to hold a formal command.
Right. And again, like with whether it's a puppy or like a new dog, you know, that you're getting from the rescue or whatever, you know, that's a couple years older or something, they still have those same problems. You know, if they've never been in a crate before or they do have just a really bad anxiety and stuff, you know, again, regardless of the age, you can come home and be like, okay, we're setting structure, we're doing this to make sure that we're kind of implementing instructions, general, easy instructions, and something that, that they're able to kind of somewhat follow, obviously again, with time. But I think it's just something that, again, with the age, it's what you want to look for. But
Sure.
I think, yeah, absolutely, regardless of their age, starting with those easy things, finding out how they do on the walks, finding out how they do in the house. Are they tearing up stuff? Are they, going to the bathroom? That's why that crate is so important. And then obviously getting them trained with the crate,
And keeping a leash on your dog, like your puppy, constantly, like, of course you're monitoring it.
Right.
But not allowing your dog to have that freedom to, like, go off and smell in the kitchen or go off and go to the dining room while you're on the couch. And just people don't realize that you could do so much just by keeping your puppy in your eyesight.
Yep.
And it's just like a toddler. We don't like a quiet toddler that's in another room. We get very suspicious.
When you hear that silence, you're like, what are they doing?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then people are like, oh, well, he's going to the bathroom all over the house. And to me, that's like a supervision issue. It's not a training issue. It's like, yes, we have to supervise them so we can properly train them and help them develop healthy potty habits.
Right. And that's habits is the key, right?
Habits,
it's something that, like if they're allowed to free roam and you leave the house to go to work, they're gonna go to the bath. If they're young, you're gonna have problems with potty training. That's the whole thing of it, of growing up and understanding new habits. But so keeping them in sight and also just frequency of going to the bathroom too, right? Create the habit or an understanding of that's where you go. You go to the bathroom outside. You don't go in here. You don't have to mark or you go whatever. Hide in the same corner every single time and go pee and poop there, A lot of times, frequency and again, crating, That's like the biggest thing I find helpful with puppies that come here, that have that issue of going to the bathroom in the house. A lot of times in just a week or two, that can be managed because we are taking them out more and they're in the crate, So no one likes to go to the bathroom on themselves.
Yeah.
So it's something that, it comes to that point again of just managing.
Yeah.
But,
and like getting those like healthy habits, getting ahead of things. So I don't want to leave it to my dog to tell me when they need to go to the bathroom. I just kind of want to get them on a really good schedule and take them out as often as I can to, again, like create good pathways with go outside and go to the bathroom and not having us go outside and it be a huge playtime and like the puppies eating leaves in the yard and you're like, can you go to the bathroom, please?
Right. Yep. So again, another point where the leash comes in handy. You don't have to let your dog just go roam around and do all those things. Have them on the leash. Pretend like you're just going for a walk. Take them around until they go to the bathroom, then bring them right back in. Yeah. And that's how I feel like you get that speedy bathroom breaks too. Where it's just like, okay, there's a clear time of like if you see me with the ball or the toys or something, then okay, we can go out and do that. But if it's something where it's just like, all right, I'm going out. Go out and go to the bathroom and get it out of the way. Even if you're going to go and play fetch with them or something in the backyard, at least they go to the bathroom first, they get out of the way, and then they see you throwing the ball or the frisbee or something, and you're like, okay. We touched a little bit on like the puppy stuff or whatever, but the older dogs, they get to that point of can these issues even be fixed, And fixed is a hard word in training because we're not technically fixing behaviors, we're more modifying behaviors.
Yeah.
And so it's something that, going back to the habits, a lot of the older dogs, it's things where sometimes I feel like the dogs don't even necessarily see it as wrong. They've just never been told that it was wrong. There's never been initiative to try to modify those behaviors. So it's something that I feel like a lot of times we get those situations of owners coming in, I really hope, this is kind of our last straw. It's an older dog, and I really hope that you can fix it. And it's more of the fact of just opening that line of communication and just being like, all right, let's change habits, right? Let's figure out where we need to kind of like open that line of communication and modify those behaviors to gear towards more of what is appropriate,
Yes.
whether that's the reactivity or walking or whatever.
Yeah. All behavior is information, and to a dog, they don't have the set morality that people do. They don't understand good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
So it's our job to tell them when we don't like something, which is why our training can be so effective, is because we're able to give a clear yes and a clear no to the behavior, and we're able to add a consequence on to what no means.
Mm-hmm.
So the dog is more motivated to set up those good habits because we're marking and correcting them when they do something incorrectly or that we don't like, jumping, barking, reactivity, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we should look at behavior as information. Is my dog having a really hard time settling in public? Is my dog having a really hard time on their walks?
Mm-hmm.
Are they having a hard time barking out the window? And what can I do to help my dog feel calmer and feel better in their environment and ultimately build their confidence in training?
Right. Yep. And yeah, it's really important. And obviously there becomes more, I guess, kind of difficulty with an older dog with, if they have like health concerns or mobility issues or whatever it may be. But it's something that a lot of times there's not a huge difference, honestly, in age. Yep. It's longer time to create habits, right?
Yeah, but do those bad habits and have those habits ingrained in them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just so natural for a dog to perform those habits.
Yeah.
But like we said, like just adding some information and some feedback goes such a long way.
Yeah. And the consistency too of the training as well. It's something that if your dog was reactive or has a high prey drive and has gone 5-6 years with being able to do all those things, then it's something that obviously we can do training, but it might take a little bit longer of consistency to kind of really reduce that kind of impulse to want to do it, as opposed to a puppy where it's like before you even allow those habits to form, you're already creating that communication of like, this is what we do, right? But it's something that it's definitely not impossible,
Puppies are about building habits and building what you want from them and giving them information. And with older dogs, it's very much about breaking habits and breaking pathways that they're so used to. They hear the knock on the door and they're literally conditioned in their brain to respond to that knocking. So it's our job to be like, what can I do to help this dog understand what I don't want and what I want? So we use like our positive and negative reinforcement and the 4 quadrants of learning, and that can really help a dog go from like very anxious and miserable and the owner is just not enjoying the dog to having a dog that can very clearly listen and bridging the gap between a bad dog and a good owner, and have both of them have like a symbiosis relationship.
Right. And why do you do the air quotes of bad dog?
There are bad dogs out there, but bad dogs...
Well, because I agree with this, but I just want you to explain it more.
Like a bad dog is like, a lot of it, like I mentioned before, is information about their behavior. So things that are bad, barking at the door, things like that, are a lot of things that humans are allowing. So inevitably, we're creating the bad dog. And not to blame people, I'm not putting blame on them because sometimes they don't know how to address that. But I don't truly believe that dogs can be evil or bad, or they're doing it on purpose, or they're, spiteful. I do not believe that those emotions exist within a dog.
Right.
I think dogs can have a really hard time. But again, we have to look at like, what piece am I playing in this dog's behavior?
Exactly.
Is it my lack of consistency? Is it my lack of clarity? Is it that the dog just doesn't want to listen to me, that I'm not motivating enough?
Or is it something even out of our control? I mean, I do think that there are some dogs that have some kind of like mental disorder,
Neurological issues.
like
Yes.
and that's a part of life too. You know what I mean? It's just something where it's just like, that's where it comes to a lot of times just how the dog, you know, genetically was brought up. And so it's just something that I do think that there's definitely certain dogs that have more neurological kind of issues and stuff. But even those dogs, I mean, you can still usually create some sort of management,
Yes,
you know,
help them,
to, right. But yeah, I think it's again, a big word to say bad, but.
Yeah, I think like bad would indicate that it's almost on purpose, and whether that dog is neurological or has a screw loose, or they're purposely, messing with you, like we have to find out what we can do to help that dog have an easier time. Like there's the saying, like your dog is not giving you a hard time, your dog is having a hard time.
Right.
Both can be true at once. Your dog can be giving you a hard time, and your dog can be having a hard time. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can help our dogs have an easier time through communication and helping them just assess what they need to work on and looking to us to be the leader that's going to hold them accountable.
Yeah, I like that. Is there anything else? That was really good.
No bad dogs.
That was a very good explanation. I like that. I'm gonna use that.
There's some stuff that like I'll hear somebody else saying, like, I'm gonna use that.
Just.
Yeah. Old dogs can learn new tricks. Create healthy habits with your puppy.
Yep.
What you're doing now with your puppy is ultimately going to dictate what your dog is as an adult. So look at what habits we can start forming to help your puppy. And just have like the most beautiful relationship so we can enjoy our dogs to their fullest potential.
Yeah.
Their life is short.
I think it's also something of like, to a degree, it's not when the dog's ready, it's when the owner's ready.
Yes.
It's.
So get ready.
Yeah. It's just, if you're that person that gets a puppy and you immediately want that structure and do it, perfect. But be ready for it, right? If it's something,
your train is here.
Exactly.
Get on in. We're going training.
Yeah. If it's something where your dog's a little bit older and you've let things slip and slide, and now they've created these really bad habits. Then do something about it. But you have to be ready. I mean, a lot of people, I feel, with the older dogs, it's something where they come to training, they do great, and then they go home, and because the dog's conditioned into those habits and the owner's conditioned into those habits, right? Where again, maybe they didn't even know they were letting these things slip or whatever, right? They didn't have the information that they do now. Then it's something that it can be hard for both to switch. But if you go into training committed to like, okay, I'm doing this because I want a better life with my dog and I want my dog to have a better life with me, then it's something that's when you're going to be ready, and that's when your dog's going to be ready too. But keep it up.
Happy training.